Good evening, everyone. Jasper Armstrong here with Module 5, Barriers to Web 2.0. When looking at the articles, there were some big ideas that kind of popped out at me. Primarily is the idea of digital citizenship. How are we teaching our students to show up on the web, online in a way that is both appropriate, professional, and is going to be able to speak to the person that they want to be in the world. Also, the idea of collaboration. How do we as educators get access to the resources and be able to have the time to sit down with one another and really talk about how we fully integrate this technology into our workspace and into our schools. Communication, right? How do we bridge the communication divide between the vision of administration and what they see as important for technology integration, the communication gap that exists between us and our students, where they are communicating versus where we are communicating digitally and face-to-face for that matter. And then there was this idea of the digital divide and, some issues around how we solve that problem. Do I feel that the digital divide can be resolved? I think when we talk about the digital divide, I think it comes down to a matter of mindset. I think there is this idea of older thinking versus newer thinking. And, there are those of us who are going to hold on to our sacred practices, right? Versus, opening our minds to new ways of thinking, and ultimately doing what's best for kids here and now in the 21st century. And then there's this whole idea of those who have access to the technology and those that don't, and the importance that exists and that lies in that. So, I think we have some work to do. I do ultimately think that the natural order will prevail, and the digital divide will begin to lessen. But I don't know if that's something that we can solve. When we talk about skills that students need to exist here in the 21st century, I think, having the ability to work in teams and work with people who are different from you and think different from you and come from places that you don't come from and have experiences that you don't have. I think that is a very important 21st century skill. I think being a problem solver both on a global scale as well as on a personal scale, right? How do you solve those personal issues that get in the way of you showing up as your best self? And how do you solve problems along the way to solve some of the bigger issues that we face, in education and globally? And then being able to navigate the different mediums of communication, both virtually and in a face-to-face setting. I think that is something that I, as an educator, see a great need for, and is fast becoming a lost art, is the art of having a face-to-face conversation, of being able to sit down with someone, read some nonverbal cues, and really be able to respond appropriately in a face-to-face conversation. I think there are times when I'm having conversations with students and I'm like, hello, is there anything going on there? But then, when we look at them digitally, they're funny, outgoing, might even be a little mean, but, there's things going on that we're just not privy to because we're not communicating where they communicate and how they communicate. The impact of the global economy on my personal use of the internet has really, um, for me, I use it to shop for anything from groceries to tennis shoes, right? And it also allows me to connect with peers globally. And I think that's something cool. And for me, I think the idea to research and the opportunities that we have to research and to hear from experts, around the world, and people on the ground, and really get those primary resources, if you will, for research, have really like expanded the idea of scholarly reading. For me, the training that I still need to integrate fully is going to be around bridging the gap again, around the way that I use technology and communicate digitally versus the way my students and other stakeholders use it, right? Spoke a little bit about that earlier, just how pivotal it is that we communicate where our students are communicating, and in a way that allows them to share with us more openly, right? That's something that's recently been brought into my awareness, and I think it's a big deal. And I definitely need some more training on that. And then, for me, it's also, how do I get access to the data that will allow me to be a better leader in terms of boots on the ground. When we look at our school and school district, I think this is a point of pride for our school district. They've spent a lot of resources in making sure that the school district has the latest and greatest technology available to our students, to our staff, in our media centers, and in the buildings. We've had a one-to-one technology initiative for a long time, and and it has been relatively widespread in its implementation. I think this is something that I'm blessed to be a part of a school and school district that really makes this a priority. When we talk about the advantages of innovative practice in school, for me, it's all about preparing kids for the 21st century workforce, right? How do you create an individual who's going to be asked to utilize these applications and to communicate in such a way that is fast paced, that is global in scale, that is in your face and really to the point and direct. How do are we preparing kids for that 21st century workplace? And then I think it also allows us an opportunity to really get the focus back on the learner. When we innovate these current technologies fully, and give kids an option and an opportunity to pick what it is that they love, they flourish. We know that. Also, I think these innovative practices really do hone in the skills of critical thinking and problem solving. When we look at the disadvantages, right? Yes, there are some distractions of having, technology in the classroom. And, in my work, I often provide a little pushback in saying, well, if kids are using technology in your classroom and that's a problem, how do I as an educator take a look at what I'm doing to keep those kids more engaged? Or how do I utilize the technology to help me keep them engaged with what it is? So I think at times as educators, we have our sacred practices and we will dig our heels in because this is the way we've done it forever. And that's just the way it is. And then when you start talking about the idea of a complete overhaul of the way that we do education in this country, you can best believe there's going to be pushback. There's going to be infighting within the profession as well. And, it's just one of those things that educators feel that we know what's best for kids, and nobody got into the profession to not help kids. It's just, how do we help kids in the 21st century platform with all that has changed in the world around us? And then for me is, how do we bridge the opportunity gap that has been with us for a very long time in this country and, continues to exist even as we move into the digital 21st century. Cyberbullying, man, this is something that's near and dear to my heart because, I have a 20-year-old daughter who came to me when she was in middle school and high school and said, Dad, I'm being bullied. And I kind of laughed it off like, yeah, bully schmully, we all know how to deal with bullies. What I didn't understand was that the type of bullying that she was facing was unlike anything I'd ever encountered in my time in school. And so, things like girls pretending to be your friends and learning your deepest, darkest secrets and then exposing that on the World Wide Web, right? That's horrifying for a little girl. Or, excluding you, in the same regard. Those things, really cut at the core of a person. And it's what our kids are dealing with. And so there again, until we as educators are able to communicate with our students where they are communicating in a way that they can hear what we're saying and we can actually hear what they're saying, we're missing the boat on a lot of it, and it's going down, with the cyberbullying. So we have to we have to be able to speak to it when they do take a chance and say, hey, look, this is what I'm experiencing. And we have to be knowledgeable about what's going on with our students. So with that, I'll sign off. I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say on the subject as well.